with this whole way of getting the music out and different producers having sound systems, everything becomes a competition. Right. So the competition evolves because, Jammies has his music and he's playing, he has his special rhythms and he has his special artists, and then, Scorpio has the same thing and Jara has the same thing. And again, we as, West Indian people, Jamaican people, everything for us is competitive. Right? Even if we go to a stage show and it wasn't set as a competition, when we leave we say, who take the stage show tonight? You know what I mean? And that's what we do.
Watch out, boom shot. You tell him say there is a make the weight and murmur now. So this one is sure shot. Him can't stop. Boom shots.
Boom shots.
With the songs of the world clash.
Which is, let's start there. How long has that been going on?
First world clash for Irish and Chin was 1998, October 1998, and we pretty much kept the tradition going. So usually every October, Columbus Day weekend in the US, everyone knows that it's World Clash time, and we kept that tradition going on for many years. But as towards the origin of the whole clashing scene, naturally comes from Jamaica. Pretty much, there's a very easy explanation for the evolving of clashing, or the erection of sound clash, right? Back in the early days, most of the top producers had sound systems, right? And having those sound systems was a way for them to get their material out, right? Because of course the radios wasn't playing dancehall music, what we know now, right? So the top producers, whether it would be the King Jammins, the Bobby Digitals, the whoever, had their own sound systems that they moved with. Steely and Cleveland would be Silver Hawk, right? And these sound establishments would be able to play their creations, right? And also find talent, because the talent at the time, there was no, walk into the studio and say, I'm who I am, can you voice me? It was more like go to the dance, try to get your hand on the microphone and, get a forward from the crowd, and maybe a producer might hear you and say, yo, come to the studio, right? So with this whole way of getting the music out and different producers having sound systems, everything becomes a competition. Right? So the competition evolves because, Jammies has his music and he's playing, he has his special rhythms and he has his special artists, and then, Scorpio has the same thing and Jara has the same thing. And again, we as, West Indian people, Jamaican people, everything for us is competitive. Right? Even if we go to a stage show and it wasn't set as a competition, when we leave we say, who take the stage show tonight? You know what I mean? And that's what we do. So this is the evolving, from my understanding, of sound clash. You know what I mean? And it's been going on traditionally ever since.
I mean, just as you describe it, how intense does that get? I mean, the fact that you said somebody might just get a look from a sound system, can that build somebody's whole career?
Yeah, I mean, throughout the period of time, I've even got a chance to sit down and interview some of the greats, and they tell you how they got their start. And their start, the majority of them, whether it's the Grammy Award-winning Shabba Ranks and this person or that person, Shaggy I also had a vibe with, and they tell you about the days when they used to have to go to the dance, try to get the microphone, try to impress that crowd, right? The days that they tried to align themselves with what was called a champion sound at the time, because if you're aligned with a champion sound, then the champion sound has an audience, and there's someone for you to actually display your talent to. You know what I mean? So the beginning of everything, in the dance hall, is the sound system. The sound system found the talent, and then the producers took the talent and exploited the talent, right? The sound systems played the tracks that later on the same radio disc jockeys who were in the dance hall said, well, wait, that song here sound good, man, I'll play it on the radio. You know what I mean? So everything pretty much started for the older artists from inside the dance hall. You know what I mean? And therefore, sound system culture shouldn't always be saluted, because what's happening today is evolving from sound system culture. Yes, now you have artists that don't really care about sounds no more because they can walk into a studio and record. But the pioneers, in which they patterned themselves to one time, once become like, These are the guys who took it from the sound system culture.
Right.
So it still goes back to that culture.
Now, I grew up on the streets of Ladbroke Grove, so Notting Hill Carnival was on my doorstep, and I feel like England is one of the only other places that has kept that sound system culture going outside of Jamaica. So you see going around, I mean, obviously to a different level, but I mean, you see in England like the sound system culture from all the guys who came over from Jamaica, lived there and brought that culture, and you really see it still happening in Notting Hill Carnival now, although it is changing. But people like Maxi Priest, who were on the pop chart, came up on that kind of stuff.
He came on Saxon. Maxi got his start on Saxons. His earlier days was Saxon's, Saxon's studio, which is probably one of the bigger sounds coming out of the culture of the UK. You have Coxon and many other sound systems, Fat Man and V-Rocket and these sound systems. But yeah, England had a very rich sound boy culture. And when we say sound boy culture, we're talking about the days where, selectors, the people who played the music on the sound systems, they played the vocals, right? And then they flipped the vocals over to the instrumental, and there was a live artist there to give you the toasting.
Right.
You know what I mean? So let's pinpoint the era. It's an era where you had a selector, you had an MC, you had an operator. So sound crews were made up of multiple people who had specific jobs on the sound. You would actually have a man who would mix all night. So the DJs is playing and you hear the boom, 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 and that gave that vibe. You know what I mean? You had the man that was responsible for taking the music out of the jacket, out of the record crate, and giving it to the very same man who is now going to play it for the massive to enjoy. You had the man who would MC and toast, the master of ceremony. You know what I mean? The DJs and the singers and so forth, and England did a very good job of replicating that. Also, the US,
right.
Brooklyn, New York, for the most part, where you come now and you have, or New York City on a whole, the downbeats, the Fergo Digitals, the LPs, the Addies, and these sounds. A lot of these sounds started off as rubbered up sound systems, and the interesting factor is, when Supercat left Jamaica and was absent from being on Kilimanjaro, when he went to England, he went on Coxon sound. And he did the same thing that he would have done in Jamaica at a Jaro dance. When he came here, he found his sound here. So the culture was being mimicked and mimicked and mimicked until it became this breakout. The transition time comes now when the artists start to get so much wealth is coming in and demand is coming in. So now when you would want to book a Kilimanjaro and you're looking for Kilimanjaro to come with Supercat, Nicodemus and Burabanta, guess what? Supercat, Nicodemus and Burabanta, they're on tour.
Right.
You understand? So this now pushes you into the dubplate era where artists now are starting to travel, so they leave their recordings, for the sound systems. They're still present, you can hear them, but you can't see them, and these are dubplate recordings. So sound systems now start to invest in these dubplate recordings in order to represent the culture a different way. It's a transition time. Once upon a time, every artist was in Jamaica because no money now run.
Right.
Nobody now fly out. Everybody's trying to bust. Then they get the bus. So them gone to England, them gone to US, them gone to Canada, but the sound systems in which they call their home sound still have to play, still have to perform. So the selector says, well, Ninja man, we know you're not go there, but make a cut to you.
Okay.
And this becomes the sound system era where we see the transition now from competing with live artists, where you're looking at Black Scorpio with General Trees and Sassafras, and you're looking at Kilimanjaro with Ninja Man and his crew, and they're clashing rhythm-wise, vocal-wise, lyrics-wise. Now you start seeing these sound systems just clashing with music.
Right.
You know what I mean? And in comes the era that we now dwell in, which is the sound system era where we clash with dub plate materials and no more live artists. So this thing is coming way before Red Bull ever thought of keeping a sound clash, right? It's way before Irish and Chin ever thought about world clash. This is our culture. Right. And this culture should be honored just as we honor our elites in the music business and other things in Jamaican culture, we have to honor this because it's the stepping stone for all the accolades that many of our Jamaican artists have.
Well, I mean, let's talk about honor. I mean, it's pretty much the foundation for all the music that we listen to, whether you call it rap, hip hop, grime, jungle. It all comes from the sound system culture.
And it's crazy that you said that, right? Because I wasn't born in Jamaica. I'm born from Jamaican parentage. And when I was younger, I was a hip hop junkie, right? And here, you know, where we reside in Queens, I grew up in Queens, right? You know, they used to have these things that you call jams, right? And this is what the hip hop guys used to do. So I'm getting, as a young age, I'm getting exposed to this. And you would go to these hip hop jams, and you know, they would have big speaker boxes and amps and turntables and everything. And I used to think this is crazy. This is hip hop. And you know, at the time you would see maybe a LL Cool J trying to get his start, and other people who come from Queens trying to get their start, right? And then I got an uncle who comes from Jamaica in the early 80s, and he's now exposing me to the sound system culture coming out of Jamaica, and I see a parallel setting. And I'm looking at it and saying, well, who took what? Where did it start?